So in the second half of our GitHub clinic, we're going to talk about good project management and how to use GitHub issues for this. So using project management software is a strategy used by many software developers and people working on projects with many moving parts, which is a big part of science and research as well. So something that we can really learn from and leverage. So this kind of software is used to organize and track projects with single or multiple and overlapping people and parts. And so its job is to do that kind of bookkeeping and tracking together for you. It also, we've really found that using GitHub for this kind of project management helps streamline technical discussions for people with different responsibilities. So in our work with the Ocean Health Index, our technical team was able, and data analysis team was able to have conversations about our research that then we could also include our supervisor in specific moments, but and have that all kind of be in the same place, but managed when he was alerted and at what level. So this has been really helpful for like the present kind of workflows with research teams, but it's also been really key for onboarding future you and future us. So this kind of documentation and management, like project management that's written down helps you onboard yourself to a project maybe that you haven't touched for a few months, or you're coming back from vacation or something. It helps you onboard yourself back to a project. It also helps onboard future us. We really found that having those kind of conversations associated with our code in GitHub made us not have to forward emails to new people that were joining a project or like dig through to find different file attachments or whatnot. So it was a really nice way for us to work presently, but also to think about onboarding future folks. So GitHub issues are the key to this, and it lets you kind of have these conversations and discuss and organize in the same place as your code or your other documentation. So we'll explore this again together, but just thinking about what GitHub issues look like in the wild. So we just looked at the tidyverse ggplot2 repository a moment ago on the left here. You'll see that their issues are kind of this traditional way that people were using issues and still use issues, which is to talk about bug reports or feature requests on software. So that's kind of what it's set up to do. You can also have in your private repositories, it's a really nice way to have private conversations and archiving. So that's the example in the top right. And then it's also been neat to see other ways of thinking about and using issues. So in the bottom right, this is an example from the Mozilla Festival, where they're using GitHub as a way to coordinate event submissions and have people tag what session they're in and coordinate that kind of way more openly. So let's have a look at what issues look like, and then we'll practice these together. So in our in this home view of our GitHub repository, we've been in the code tab so far, and you'll see that everything we're seeing right now is just one tab that exists. So there's other features that you're able to explore and leverage when you've got this single GitHub repository. So if we look at this issues tab here, this is the view when it's a new project and you don't yet have an issue, but we can go ahead and create an issue, and that happens here with this green button. So this is the view here. I'll say like a question about the data, like, hi, Michelle. I can tag Michelle and say, I have a question on these points. I can use Markdown, and as you learn Markdown, these buttons up here are really helpful for you to do. You can make this a list of things. You can make this a checklist of things so that you can check them off as you go. This also helps you add code and links here. So as you're getting comfortable with Markdown, you can use those things if you'd like, and also preview them as you go. So let's try this. I have a question on these points, 1 and 2. And then I said, could you please do these things? Thing 1, thing 2. And then if we want to preview what this would look like, this is the way it will look once I posted this issue. So Michelle will be tagged, and we can also, you can see how this is formatted. There's also ways that you can assign different people to be responsible for this issue. So let's say I'll assign myself. I could put a label here if I wanted. These are the default labels, but you're able to change these as useful for your project. So maybe I'll put this as a question. There's some other ways that you can sort of categorize this as you get, like if this becomes a useful workflow for you. So when I submit this, now this is posted. It has a number, which is a question about the data. And you'll see that it also has a URL. This is issue 3. And so again, you can direct somebody specifically to this issue. Now, what Michelle can do is she can comment here, which you're welcome to do live. And I can also comment here. So this becomes like a conversation about this task to do, as well as something that once Michelle has done these 2 things, I'll click them for her in this demo. She could then also close the issue and say that this task has been done. So this is what like creating an issue looks like. We can also go back to the main view of what all issues in this repository would look like. They would, right now we just have this one, but they would all be listed here. And you'd be able to, at a glance, see kind of what the tasks, the ongoing to-do items were for this repository. So just to show a further example of this, let's go to another one of our repositories. Maybe let's go to the cookbook repository and look at, there's 29 issues open here. And this is just to give a sense of kind of some of the things that people have been working on. I was playing around with different tasks, and there's been conversations that people have had here. Let's look at some of the closed ones. I think those are more interesting. So yeah, so there's different tasks that were somebody opened and then somebody else was able to take care of. So what we'll have you all do now, so I'm going to come back to our slides and go to this next slides. We'll have you all practice creating and commenting on issues. So you'll go to our cohorts repository and create an issue, tag people in your breakout room. So you'll have to ask what their usernames are and you'll tag them. And you'll also be able to start browsing the issues that other people have made in our breakout room and comment on those. So while you're doing this, you can practice, Markdown, you can create a label and apply it. You can kind of think about, what might be relevant for your work as we go. And then we'll meet back here after the breakout room and go over a few more things. So I will stop recording and we can give this a try. Okay, so we are back. Let's have a look at the issues you've created. So here in our issues tab, you can see we've got 2 open issues. We've got the question about data that was 7 minutes ago. Both tasks are done. You can see that there's been some conversation around that, and I'm assigned. And then Michelle's also made one more recently. There's some comments, and Luis is assigned. So let's just have a look at this. When we open this up again, can see that she's got a comment, and that this issue, we can now close this. So this task is done. So when I close that, this is still the same link. It still exists as a record. We can reopen it if we needed to continue this conversation about the data or something came back. But this is, this is now like part of this project's shared memory, even though the task is done. And that's, I think, been really useful for kind of the longevity of these projects, and thinking things through as new people join or as you come back to these, particularly like I'm thinking like an annual report or an annual activity. So now when we go to this issues tab, it says just one is open, and that's what we see by default. We can always click on the closed ones and see those. You can also filter in a lot of different ways. And so if you wanted to see all of them that ever existed, you can delete and even see ones from last week here. So, looking again at Michelle's other issue, she's inserted an image here. We've got eyes looking at it, thinking about how to solve this, and then we also were able to tag Luis, who's not here right now, but we can asynchronously kind of figure this out together. So that's that's kind of how. So there's issues associated with every repository, and the let me show you this next slide here. Your inbox will probably have a lot of emails from our GitHub repository right now, because every time somebody posts an issue in this repository, the settings are such that you'll get an email. So this is pretty rare to receive so many emails all at once, but you can switch this so that you can decide how frequently you want to get notified. So the way you do that is up here in the setting here for every repository. It says unwatch. Right now, I am going to be getting an email for every activity, every issue that's ever posted in this repository. But I might actually just want to be notified if I'm mentioned by a username, or if someone's responding to a thread I started. So I think that's what I'll set here now. But for a lot of repositories that I'm working in actively, I actually want to know anytime somebody has a question. But you can see that that's when I was talking about my Ocean Health Index team, that's how my supervisor had it set, is that he can always see everything and look at anything that we're talking about, but he is only going to get an email notification when we've mentioned him specifically. So we can also we can think about how people are using GitHub organizations and projects, because you can coordinate a lot of GitHub repositories into the same place, like we're doing with our Openscapes organization. And you can also organize your issues you can organize your issues together in different views, so that you can, this is called a Kanban board, where you're able to think about kind of what's on the task this week or next week. You're able to basically have your issues become little cards that you can move around and assign different people, and kind of have this kind of view, even though each one of these little cards has their own URL and page, like we were just doing. The idea of GitHub projects has been in active development and has changed quite a bit even in the last year, and is more powerful. One thing I really like about it is that, in an organization like Openscapes, we have a mix of public and private repositories, and they have to-do lists, through issues in each one. This is a place where I can see them all together, whether or not they're public. So if you go to this URL, you'll see that some of these you don't have permission to see, but when I'm logged in, I can see them all in one place, and that's been really powerful. So this has been just a brief introduction to using GitHub from the browser, getting comfortable with the idea of navigating around a repository, committing your files, and using issues and thinking about how to create shared to-do lists with yourself and with others. So there's a few links here to continue thinking about how you would organize these things as your project grows and involves more people. And yeah, thanks so much for joining.